Well, we'll get started here. We'll welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for the innovation series. We're excited to have you here for another workshop that's taking place across this innovation series. Today, we're going to be hopping into our business model and value proposition canvases and helping you design a model that succeeds and ultimately help you grow your startup or innovation. My name's Cameron Law. I serve as the Executive Director of the Carlson Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. I'm joined by Brian Gladden, who's going to be leading our session today. He's one of our entrepreneurs in residence and the founder and CEO of Strategy and Innovation Institute, or SI2. But we're excited to have you all here. If you're not familiar with the Carlson Center, we serve as a regional hub and platform for providing approachable and accessible entrepreneurial education, community, and support to enable startup founders of all backgrounds to start, scale, and grow their businesses. This is a terrific series of really tools and frameworks to help you get your business off the ground and ultimately scaling it going forward. And so this is our fourth session of 11 total workshops. So you'll be in good hands if you engage us throughout October. And we look forward to having you plug in some future workshops that you can plug into. We have obviously today the business and value proposition canvases and really helping you design a model that succeeds with Brian. Coming up on August 16th, we have Ash Moria, the author of Running Lean and the founder and CEO of Lean Stack, who'll be coming in and helping you identify how to systematically build your startup and really talking about the framework of running lean. We then will have Ben Lamort come in to talk about OKRs, how you can drive focus, alignment, and engagement in your business. We then have Tunde Vicky, who's going to be tackling pirates in the Navy and helping you build a world-class innovation, both as an innovator and a corporate entrepreneur. And then we're going to be bringing in David Bland to help you test your business ideas and really honing in on desirability, feasibility, and viability. And then you'll learn a little bit more about jobs to be done today with Brian, but we have Anthony Olwick, who's the author of Jobs to be Done and the CEO of Strategyzer, who will be diving into that. But we're really excited to have you plug in. I'll be sharing a link for you to register for those future sessions. But without further ado, again, today we're going to be tackling the business model and value proposition canvases. And leading the charge, we have Brian Gladden. As I shared, he's one of our entrepreneurs in residence at the Carlson Center, and he's the CEO of Strategy Innovation Institute and is really a leader in these innovation and entrepreneurial tools and methodologies. He's a coach with Strategyzer, Lean Stack, I think Blue Ocean Strategy, you name it, pretty much all the tools that we're teaching and is helping lead the charge on this overall series. But we're in good hands today. And just as Brian takes over the screen here, would love for everyone to share in the chat where you're joining us from and what the startup or idea you're working on is, and would love to get you engaging in there. Throughout this session today, feel free to use the raised hand feature or throw your questions in the chat. I'll help bring those in for engaging Brian. But without further ado, we'll go from there.
Thanks, Cameron. Appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. I see in the chat folks are throwing in where they're from, and I got some faraway places. So Sydney, Australia's in the house, as well as Scotland. So welcome. I'm glad you guys could join us. As well as some East Coast, Midwest. So we are happy to have you here. It's not just a Northern Cal, Sacramento thing. So I'm just admitting some more folks in the room here. Let us give a second.
I'm happy to take over for you.
All right, appreciate that.
You got it.
Good. I'm going to share my screen and then we will get going. Second here. And this will be recorded. I know that's always the normal question, and you'll be able to get these slides as well. So you don't need to worry all about that. All right, Cam, I'm going to let you take control of the
you got it.
Room from now on. So I'd love to see your pretty faces. I know it's probably lunchtime for many of us here on the West Coast, but I appreciate Steve and Franklin and Joyce and Anne Marie for letting me see their beautiful faces. So the rest of you, if you can, be great. And if you've got to go on and off, I get it. So we're going to actually do some interactive stuff today as well. So it won't just be me talking at you. We're going to have a few slides where I'm going to be asking you to put stuff in the chat room, right? So we will let you know when that is. All right. So today we're talking about the business model canvas and value prop canvas. I am curious, you can do emojis, thumbs up, unmute. How many of you are familiar with the Strategyzer tools, the business model canvas and the value proposition canvas?
We got about 10 thumbs up, 11.
Okay, I guess I see some thumbs up. If you're not, that's okay. All right, so I've got some. Good. Well, hopefully today we're going to give you a little bit more in-depth knowledge on how to use both. If you haven't heard about them, that's okay. The goal, one of the high-level goals that I have for you today is to change your mindset from the old way of looking at products and services and launching them, whether you're in a startup or you're in a corporate environment and you're doing innovation. The old way was we look at products and services and we try and innovate them, right? Product service innovation. We want to move beyond products and services to business model innovation. If you're working with any of the leading companies in the world, leading accelerators, you're going to be taught about business models more than you are about business plans and just writing the old business, documents on your static market and the projections and looking at your product and service. Nowadays, the idea, the thing that you want to launch, the product or service, that's the starting point. That's not the ending point. So we've come a long ways. And the way that we look at these things now is about your business model, because the idea is only one part of that. The business model canvas is what we're going to talk about today. And the business model is really how you tell your story, how you create, deliver, and capture value for your organization. And this last word is key. So remember that, because in a few slides, it's not going to be about your organization, but your business model is how you create, deliver, and capture value for your organization. The business model canvas, what you see on the screen now, developed by Alex Osterwalder at Strategyzer, and I coach with Alex. My dissertation, my doctorate was written on this stuff. So his work and the other work in business model generation and business model creation, very familiar. And so this is a great tool. There are other adaptations, which I love as well. And Ash Moria, who created the Lean Canvas, which you'll hear about in a couple of weeks, is another wonderful adaptation for startups. And they're both fantastic. But in general, the business model here has 9 boxes, right? And it's how you look at this. We look at it from both a supply side. So everything over here on the right, I'm going to use my little pointer now to talk to you. So all this stuff over here on the right-hand side, we call this the demand side. It's all about the customer, right? The segments, your relationships, which is how you get, create, and keep customers. Your channels, which is how you get your stuff to your customers, right? Product or service doesn't matter. And then your revenue streams, right? How you're actually getting money from your customers. On the left-hand side, the business model canvas is all about you, the supply side, right? It's your activities, what you do on a daily basis. It's your key resources, which is your assets, right? Buildings, trucks, IP, technology, your partners that actually help you, and then your costs. So in the middle is the thing, right here. This is your unique value proposition. But I'm going to actually cross that out for a second and write the word offering. People get really tripped up right here, and it's hard with my finger to write on this, but you could just pretend that your value prop in the middle of this canvas or the Lean Canvas, it's all about your offering. It's not about you listing all of the value propositions that you think that your product or service is going to deliver. And we'll talk through that and more, but that's not what this is about. So this creates a shared language, right? Your business model. That's one of the big advantages of having a one-page document that you can use. And I'll talk more about that in a few slides, but let's look at a quick example. So here's Airbnb. And you might first say, well, gosh, how can one page tell your entire story? Remember, this is an executive summary and it's dynamic. The old way of making a 200 to 300 page Word document business plan is over. Business plans are dead. Business models are how investment bankers, VCs, angels, accelerators, this is how people want to consume what your idea is. So if you are going to pitch your idea to an investment banker or a VC, they're not going to read a 200-page document. Even your banker's not going to read it. They just don't have time. They want to know 10 to 12 slides with an executive summary view, which is what this is. What is your idea? Who are you selling it to? What's the problem? What traction do you have? And then what's the potential? And we'll talk through these in more detail. But you can see here from Airbnb, the most important boxes are the customer segment, right? And the value prop. It's a multi-sided model, which means we have travelers, right? And we have hosts, which we all know about Airbnb. So in their thing they've created, their offering, you can have a picture, you can have some words. I think both are important because obviously a picture is worth 1,000 words and many times. So when you do your business model, it's great to have pictures. But living like a local or having a local place to rent, right? That is what the whole idea here for the traveler is, having a place that's not a hotel. For hosts, right, it's income. That is the whole thing that we are trying to solve for the host, apartment, house, whatever it might be. A new feature to Airbnb, this wouldn't have been here in their initial canvas, right, is experience providers and additional income that Airbnb is providing. And how do they make money? Well, they make a percentage on all of these things, right? Every time you or I rent an Airbnb, Airbnb makes a percentage on that transaction. Very simple. You don't have to get very detailed here. If you have a specific number, great, you list that number right there. Channels. What are the channels? Well, channels are how we actually are getting the goods to our customers, right? In this case, it's digital. So it's an app, or we go on the website, Airbnb, right? That's how they hear about it. And that's how you do your transaction. When you fill out your canvas, your customer relationships, this box, again, trips people up sometimes. Like, well, what do you mean about relationships? Well, it's how you get, keep, and grow customers. And that could be a direct sales force if you're in a large corporate environment. It could be a distributor, could be a newsletter, could be just telemarketing, right? How am I, if once I get somebody, Steve's my new customer, how am I going to keep in touch with him? Here it's a community, right? Just like Facebook, you have a community of users. You also could do tailored things to that person, right? As a new offer or a discount type of thing. Maybe you have, for if we were doing an Uber canvas, right, it would be the 5-star rating, and you're getting maybe for Starbucks, you're getting coupons. On the backhand side back here, the supply side, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Start with our key resources or activities, like what is it we own that's really key to us? Here it's the host community, right? Your people, could be your IT staff, which might be a little more detail there. And now it's their brand, but initially starting, brand was not a key asset. They don't really have a business model if they don't have places to rent, right? If we have a bunch of us that just wants to rent someplace, but there's no host, there's really no business model. So they've got to have this inventory, which is very key. So having these hosts here. And what is it that you do on a daily basis? They are doing marketing. They are doing maintenance of this platform, right? This thing that they've built to connect hosts and us as travelers. And then rules and regulations. For them, that's a big one, right? And it could be different rules and regulations for different cities, different counties, different states, right? As you're doing transactions, could be insurance. So this is what they're doing on a daily basis. And then your key partners. Who are those partners that are helping you, that are critical to your success, doing something that you are not your core capability, right? So it could be here, regulators, they're talking with lobbyists maybe, could be investors. If we're looking at something like, even for Airbnb, you could list here something like e-commerce. Maybe they're using things like PayPal or Square or different applications, Stripe, to actually get these things done. And those evolve over time. Maybe then you start to buy companies and you embed your own technology. But when you're first starting or have a new offering, who are those key partners getting you to the market? Logistics, transportation companies, as an example. We're not going to spend too much time on the business model itself because I want to get into the value prop. But the business model, understanding this one-page concept is the key foundation. So whether you're a corporate innovator or a startup, this new idea or your current business, you might have used the business model canvas like you see here to do ideation sessions, right, with your team. Sit around and say, okay, it's strategic planning time. In a few months, everyone's going to be end of year planning for 2024. Let's use the canvas. Let's ideate what new markets we want to go after. And you start putting sticky notes on your, either hopefully you have an old canvas and you're like, okay, who we want to target now? Or it could be your new idea. Let's get on the same page as an executive team, which is the first step, and understand how we create, deliver, and capture value. So if you haven't done it, that's the first step. But what you'll see when we look at the canvas is nowhere on the business model canvas does it have the words problems or needs. So how do you know that you are solving your customer's biggest problems? Just by filling out the business model canvas. And this is one of the biggest things that we see as Strategyzer and coaches and myself, a business model expert. Folks will use these tools, whether it's the business model canvas, lean canvas, another canvas of some sort, and you just fill it out, and then you just say, okay, I did that as a checklist, and you put it in the drawer, you put it in with the rest of your documentation, and that's wrong. Don't do that, because it is meant to be a dynamic, ever ongoing pursuit of continuous innovation. And we're going to talk about how you use the canvas to innovate from as well in just a few slides. But on the canvas, again, you don't see the words problems anywhere. So how do you know that you are actually solving the customer's biggest problems? Let's take a look at an example. So here's Hilti, and we're going to use Hilti through the rest of the presentation. And their business model here is selling tools, right, to construction companies and construction workers. Very simple, pretty pictures. And whether you want to tell the story from the customer, the construction worker needs tools, that's their value prop, is creating, tools and selling tools. Or from the other way, we make tools and we sell them to construction, workers, right? That's the value prop, that's the customer and what you're doing. But to really understand that customer's need, that construction worker, we need to get underneath the business model and get much deeper about customer problems. And this is the thing that most folks that use a business model canvas don't do. They don't know about the value proposition canvas. And it's really, really important because the two are meant to be used together in conjunction. So what is this value prop canvas? Well, it really is a layer below the business model canvas. And it is meant to help you tell the story of how you create and deliver value for your customers versus you, the company, right? We talk about the canvas is how you create value for the organization. The value prop canvas is how you create value for your customers. And in any innovation framework that you're looking at out there, that's a good framework, the customer should be the main focus. Your idea is just the starting point. It's not about you or your idea. It's all about the customer's problems, right? And how do we solve those problems? So let's take a deeper look at what this value prop canvas is. So if you Google it, it's free. We're happy to send them to you. Strategyzer and Alex have made these tools free. The value prop canvas has two sides to it. The right-hand side is the most important side, and this is called the customer profile. I'll get to that in a second. And on the left-hand side, this is you. This is your company, your offering, and this is your value map. From this value map is where our unique value prop, pretty picture of the drill comes. From this customer profile is where the nice little icon of the construction worker come from. In the past, we would just, again, create hundreds of pages of documents saying, here's customer segments and all this research and demographics. But at the end of the day, we have no evidence without talking to people what their problems actually are going forward and right now. And this is what the value prop canvas does. It helps us with a hypothesis and from ideation standpoint. It also helps us clarify as we get traction and evidence to prioritize what the biggest problems are to make sure that we're actually solving those problems. And you probably are thinking to yourself, what is this customer jobs? What is pains and gains? And so we're going to talk a lot about this. This is a big concept right now. So we all as consumers or customers in any market you want to talk about, we hire and buy products and services to get jobs done. I'm going to let that sink in for a second. This is a really big concept, and we're going to come back to this quite a bit. So when you think about going to the grocery store, right? We hire or buy food to get a job done because we're hungry. Buy a car to get a job done to take us from point A to point B, plus other jobs. When we try and get this job done as a consumer or customer, we have pains that we're worried about. We're worried about things not getting done correctly, or if at all, right? We're worried about, we have fears. We're saying, oh, this risk is high. What about this doesn't happen? But we're also looking for positive things, gains, right? If I get this job done, man, I'd love for this to have happened. And I'd like for this to be the outcome, right? So when we think about customers, we no longer look at customer segments from age and geographic and the historical demographics. We look at customers from what job are they trying to get done? Because Anne-Marie, as a female, younger than me, we might not be in the same customer segment. Oh, we're not going after that demographic. Well, I could care less how old somebody is, if they're male or female. What's the job you want to get done? You're my target market. I'm trying to understand how I can solve your problem better than the current existing alternative. So I really need to understand what job you're trying to accomplish. And we're going to get into this a lot more in a second. But when you figure out the right-hand side, talk to people, we do interviews, we gather research, we now think we have a pretty good idea of what their pains, their gains, right, their jobs are. We then look to figure out, can we solve those things by then creating this new offering on the left-hand side? And I'm going to come back and give you an example in just a second. I touched on this already, but the customer segment is really that key that we want to start with. And as you start thinking about the customer segment, no longer just your idea, right? Again, your idea is the starting point. I want you to really try and think about this: products and services to get a job done, right? Do the things that we do in my company now, or my new idea, do I know what those jobs are that the customer is trying to get done currently? I might have a historic, 20-year product service life cycle that we're doing great in. Yeah, we know what they're trying to do. Well, one of the things that we can do then is to innovate from that, which we're going to talk about, and say, okay, what new jobs do these customers might have? Can we get a job done faster or quicker or better? And what does that mean for the customer? And when we think about jobs, historically, most of us go right to the functional jobs, right? I buy a car because I want to get from point A to point B. Some of you might have heard the old Henry Ford quote that's attributed to him, right? If you ask customers, what they want, they're going to say, I want a faster horse, right? Because their cars didn't exist. Well, what they really want, their job to get done, was to get from point A to point B faster, right? The only way they knew how to do it was a horse at the time. He's like, well, you don't need to know about my concept of a car, but what I need to understand is what job you're trying to get done. And then I'm going to prove to you I can get it done faster, right? So, but that's the functional job. But us as humans, we also have emotional and social jobs. And most of the time we forget about these. So every business, doesn't matter if you're Facebook, you're Google, you're Intel, whatever it is, us as buyers, we have a hidden emotional or social issues sometimes that we're trying to get done. Oh, I want to buy this because I don't want to get fired. I used to be in telecom, and the old adage was no one ever gets, fired from buying AT&T. Same thing with IBM, right? Back in the day. Not anymore. Well, what are those emotional things? Is it risk? Is it fear? And how about social? Is it you want to be perceived a certain way by other people? A great example is Tesla. So I don't know if anyone was one of the first adopters of the S, sports car, but you didn't buy that just because it was functional, because it wasn't functional, right? There was no charging stations. Yeah, you bought it because emotional issues and social reasons. You want to be perceived as being cool and high tech and eco-friendly and have a cool design, and it goes from 0 to 60 in like 3.5 seconds, but it wasn't the most functional thing, right? If it was functionality, you probably buy a hybrid like a Prius. So we have to understand the customer's job to get done. We're not going to get deeper into this today, but in about a month, as Cameron mentioned, Tony Ulwick, who's the founder of Strategyzer, he's one of the creators of this concept, jobs to be done, him and Clayton Christensen, who passed away, who was a professor at Harvard. So Tony is going to come talk about jobs to be done. And this is a really significant mindset shift for corporate innovators, for entrepreneurs. How do I look at my target market so I can innovate and beat the competition? So I want you guys to, and ladies, to all quickly do an exercise with me. So just think about you as a business traveler. And we're only going to look at the job part of it, not pains and gains, just due to timing reasons right now. So go in the chat and just list what are some jobs that you as a business traveler want to get done. So you're going on a trip tomorrow. What are you worried about? What are you going to try and get done today? What do you want to make sure you get done? So when you do travel, this job gets accomplished. I'm going to read some of your stuff here. Good stuff. Yep. Great. Love it. And think about it, remember, from not just functional, are there some emotional and social jobs you want to get done, right? You're a mom, you're a husband, dad, right? What are some other things? Yeah, oh, baggage arriving on time, boy. Just got back from my family trip to Italy last month, and I lost mine in both directions. All right, good enough. We could, go on for a while, and there's not one right answer, but I'm going to click on it now and see how close you guys were to some of these jobs. So I want to be able to get food, right? I want to feel safe. I want to look good with my clients. I want to get some rest. That's the obvious one. I want to feel connected with home. I want to be able to reserve an accommodation. I want to, obviously stay somewhere overnight. I have to, get to my business meeting. Pretty standard stuff, right? And I'm sure there was some other great ones. I love the baggage one, right? Make sure my stuff gets there to me. So the thought here, though, is, right, we probably have a dozen between all the people who answered and what's here, a dozen different jobs to get done, right? From that, we might have 20 pains. What are you worried about? Well, my luggage gets lost. Now I have no clothes to wear for tomorrow's meeting, right? And I got nowhere to shower. I got no makeup, and all these different things. Same with the gains. But these are our hypotheses. These are just your guesses. Until you go out and get evidence from your customers, we don't know how to prioritize these, right? So I'm going to ask Maria and say, Maria, okay, organize these for me from 1 to 8. Which one's most important? Well, what's most important to you might not be most important to the other, 99 of the 100 people I talk to, right? So this canvas gives us a starting point and a framework to work within to, one, hypothesize, right? And just we're just going to brainstorm. Here's what we think is the problem. And then 2, go out and actually get evidence when we talk to customers, and then start to prioritize them. Okay, here's 10 problems, but what are the top 3 jobs to get done? Top 3 pains, top 3 gains, because your customers aren't going to pay you the most money for problems 8, 9, and 10. They're going to pay you the most money to solve problems 1, 2, and 3, right? So we use this as a framework. So let's go back to our Hilti example. So you literally can, pull this apart. Here's our canvas for the business model. Underneath is our value prop canvas. We see the construction worker here, right? And we say, okay, he wants to get construction done. We're obviously simplifying this for time. There's probably another half a dozen jobs he wants to get done. And he's worried about, time lost in maintenance for tools and tools being expensive. He wants to, have a good work environment and have safe employees. So we create quality tools as Hilti, and they're ergonomic in your hand, and you have a safety trigger against mishandling. They're less maintenance, and you have a cheaper cost because they last longer. We simplified it, right? If this is the case, you get to what we call problem solution fit. I'm sure most of you have heard that term before, right? Problem solution fit. This is where you want to get to in any new offering. But how can you prove problem solution fit? Is it just your best guess? So literally, we need to be able to, after we gathered evidence and traction, doing experiments, right? Lean sprints and design sprints, whatever you want to call things. If we can draw some lines from, you know what, this new feature we've created solves this problem. This new feature that over here eliminates this pain. If we do it to the most important jobs, pains, and gains, you have problem solution fit. If not, you've created a bunch of stuff over here that nobody cares about. And that's why most 9 out of 10 startups don't make it. Most corporate launches, innovations don't make it. So they start building stuff with no evidence of how we're solving the customer's most important problems. And they never get the problem solution fit. So this is why the value prop canvas, in my opinion, is one of the most 3 important tools that I've come across in the last 30 years in business. For me, Blue Ocean Strategy Canvas is one of them. The value prop canvas is one of them. And then the third one, I always waffle. There's several I go back and forth on. So I'll leave that open for now. But it's really important because it is not just a static point in time. It's something we continue to use. And in this slide, I love because it helps you understand, well, how do I want to quantify or qualify these things? So for a job, we can list those jobs from a customer segment. But when we describe gains and pains, do it in terms of dollars, right? A percent increase or decrease in something, and then time, right? Saving someone time, saving them money, increase 50%, in availability or 30% less in cost, right? That's how people think. So when we're over here creating this new drill, what are the features, which is what these gain creators are and pain relievers are features of your new offering that either increase, maximize something, improve something, create something, or eliminate a fear, decrease a risk, minimize some time, or reduce some costs, right? As an example. That's how we want to think about your features and then be able to say, you know what, these map to this maps to this. I'm going to stop there for a second and just make sure.
Yep. There was one question for you, Brian.
Go for it.
And it was, how do you prioritize between what customers will say and therefore may generate profit and that ultimately helps them generate profit and maybe no one mentions, but will have the ethical, sustainable values attached to it?
Great question. And I'm going to answer it 2 ways. The first way is we're going to get really deep into gathering evidence when David Bland comes to talk to us in a few weeks. So if you're not familiar with him, the book Testing Business Ideas on my shelf back there is one of the Strategyzer books. David actually lives in Sacramento now. He lives here in Roseville. So for all you Roseville, Sacramento people, he lives here. He is one of the thought leaders in the world. You can Google him on testing business ideas. He's created a framework called assumptions mapping that Strategyzer uses well now too. And it helps us understand where the risks are, how we can actually create hypotheses and sprints to gather evidence so we can reduce our risk as much as possible. Sustainability can be a big piece of that. So to your point, we have to gather evidence, we have to get traction, we have to talk to enough people. And part of that's the early adopters, right? Who is it we're focused on that they know they have a pain now, they've stated it, and we're going to get into that significantly more in that session. Hopefully that answers your question. If not, we'll come back to it. All right, great question. So let's say we have now documented our Hilti business model canvas, and we've documented our value prop canvas as is, right? This is what we do right now. How do we innovate from that? And this is one of the things I love. So we've got our how we do things now, or maybe you've done it and you're like, yeah, we've been doing great for years, but we want to try and find some new markets, whether it's adjacent markets, create some new market space, which I love to do, find some new customer segments, right? We see some trends, stuff's growing. How do we use these tools to do that? So let's pretend we're Hilti. And we look at this in a few ways, right? We talked about the front stage, the demand side, which is the customer stuff over here in the yellow. You are the back office, which is the supply side. And then you have your cost and revenue, which is your profit formula down here. So if we think about, this is a real example, Hilti said, right now it's a transaction-based product that we have, right? We build tools and we sell power tools. Whether you go to Home Depot or Lowe's, you buy it on Amazon, right? It's just a transaction. How do we create monthly recurring revenue? And they had never done this before. And this might be an old story now to some of you, but at the time they did this, there were no power tool companies doing anything except a transaction, right? You make it, you buy it. Maybe you have a little bit of extended warranty on it. Per our last canvas, right? We remember we were selling to the construction workers, most likely, foreman, something like that on the site. We don't want to sell to him anymore. If we're looking at monthly reoccurring, let's go up market. Let's sell it to the CEO, right? Or if it's a massive company, maybe it's the GM of North America, right? Let's call it the CEO. How do we know what his problems are that are different than the construction, foreman on site? We've got to go ask him, right? We have to go talk to him. We've got to understand his jobs, pains, and gains. What are the most important things he's trying to work on now? And how are those things not getting done with our solutions or competitor solutions? So we really don't know what to build right now because we don't have that information, right? That evidence. We've got to go out literally and do these interviews, which is the first thing we do in design sprints or lean sprints. Once we go out and talk to him, then we can start to say, okay, do we have these core capabilities? Can we build these new things? Do we need new partners? Do we need new assets and activities? And so we'll go through some examples of that as well. So this is a real example. So what happened? So Hilti said, here's what we do now. We manufacture and sell light machine tools for builders. After talking to the CEO, this is what they found out. The customer's biggest need, biggest job to get done is not to buy tools. They're not in the business of construction to buy tools. That was just what they had to do to get their job done of building a home or a building, right? So the CEO said, no, our main job is to manage, maintain, and replace the tools. Right tool, right place, right time, right? That is my goal. So Hilti literally said, great, let's change how we do these things. They looked at jobs to be done and pains and gains, and I want you to do this. And a quick exercise, so you guys can go in the chat, and we've got, I already, kind of set you up here for success, right? We have 9 different things over here on the left, little sticky notes. 3 of those are going to be jobs to be done, 3 are pains, and 3 are gains. So start with your jobs. And just put in the chat, what do you think the 3 main jobs to get done are the CEO of a construction company of those 9? I'm going to browse chat while you guys do it. Yeah, so just list in there of these 9 stickies, what are the 3 you think are jobs? All right, so we got some good answers. So the main 3 jobs that they were looking to get done, we've got to execute our contracts, we got to respect our deadlines, and we got to plan our schedule. But those are their main jobs that the CEO is worried about. I'm going to admit somebody here. So now let's think about pains. Of the 6 left, 3 are gains, 3 are pains. What do you think are the pains in these sticky notes that the CEO is worried about? I think everyone likes the delay and penalties. Good. All right, so let's take a look. So the 3 pains he's worried about were delays and penalties, my upfront investment, right, and broken tools and thefts, which leaves us the gains that he's hoping to have, or she is I want some healthy margins, I want access to new tools. I want 100% uptime tools, right? That's like, hey, this is awesome. But again, those pains are a big driver. So now, once we've got evidence and feedback from your customer prospects on these pains, gains, and jobs, we can then start to shift to the left side and say, okay, what do we need to make to solve this? How do we have to change our current core capabilities and offerings to meet these new customers, right? So what they created was this solution, online fleet management. For a monthly subscription, Hilti helps you track, repair, replace, and upgrade your tools at no additional cost. Wow, that's awesome, right? And they were the first ones to do this. So let's take a look at the left-hand side of the value prop canvas. They've already given you the answer, right? Their new solution is an online fleet management system. But what we want to look at here is what goes in the gain creator and pain relievers, right? These are the features, a very specific solution. If you're going to make a data sheet, right, and say, here's my online fleet management system product or offering, what does that come with? So there's 5 of them. 3 of them will go in one area and 2 in the other. So in chat, write down what you think the gain creators are, and then the pain relievers. And I'm going to give you a hint. When we start to draw lines, right, usually you want to have a pain reliever feature that you can draw a line to a pain, vice versa. All right, some good answers here. Well done. So let's take a look. So subscription is a pain reliever. That's the feature of this fleet management system because it helps reduce that worry of upfront investment, right? They don't have to outlay, $1 million in capital equipment for, tons of tools. No cost for repair and replacement. It actually helps with 2 of these pains, right? Now I'm not worried about broken tools and thefts because you're going to replace them for me at free, Hilti, or I'm not worried about delays and penalties because you're going to make sure I have them at my site. So you could draw, 1 gain creator or 1 pain reliever could solve multiple pains or gains. And so it's kind of an art, obviously now the other 3 are going to go up top. As we do this, sound cost management, healthy margins. Access to modern fleet, access to newer tools. Less downtime, 100% uptime, right? So you can kind of see plus less downtime, you don't have broken tools. So now you're uptime. So that one, as you see, it's kind of like right here in the middle. Because like, well, do I put it up top? Do I put it down below? There's never one like silver bullet right answer. It's kind of an art and a science. And as you do some of these, you'll start to say, you know what? Let's just get things up here on sticky notes. And then we start to move them around. Like, okay, well, is that really a customer's pain or is that really a gain? And you kind of talk through that after you've gathered, information from them, is it something they're really worried about or something they hope happens, right? And then we kind of start to see how we position our sticky notes. And then a lot of this stuff, right, is what you and the marketing team, once you launch this thing, they start to see, well, what's the messaging? Well, the messaging comes from solving the customer's real problems. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of stuff you've created and you can actually hope you can go out and sell it. So I'm going to stop there for a second, just see, does that help when you kind of bring it all together, help you understand how to use the value prop canvas? Any questions in chat, Cameron?
None that I have seen, just the engagement in the exercise.
Okay, great. All right, so we're kind of wrapping up. I want to have time for questions. So now that we've looked at the value prop canvas, the business model canvas, right? Pains and gains. The mindset that I want to kind of wrap up to is an important piece here. It's a big piece as innovators. The business model or value prop might look great on paper. And sometimes this is where executive teams or even product teams go wrong. It's like, okay, they just put it on a piece of paper, we're done, it's static. But again, these things that you're putting on paper, if you're just doing it within the four walls of your building, those are just your opinions and your assumptions. And those are not good enough because your risk is way too high. The number one goal and job of any entrepreneur or entrepreneur is to reduce risk, whether you're the CEO or you're startup founder. So all of these things in these boxes are hypotheses that you need to go out and gather evidence and traction from. And it's almost impossible to take your risk down to zero, right? But the goal is, as a CEO, founder, innovator, entrepreneur, how do we go to our executive team, especially if it's millions of dollars of investment, and say, here's what we've learned. We've reduced our risk from here down to here. We know who our early adopters are. We've got letters of intent. We have 50 interviews with feedback, right? And now we've actually pivoted because we've got this information that's way different than it was 12 months ago from some IDC, Gartner, and Forrester publication, right? Think COVID, everything changed overnight. It's like, how are we keeping in track and in tune with the customer's changing needs? And these are all your hypotheses. And the old way it was about the idea, now let's go invest. You're not going to see big companies do that anymore. It's all about small bets until we start to get enough risk reduction and traction, then we start to invest more and more and more. These hypotheses from the top, right, come down here to the bottom, right? Your value prop canvas, your customer profile, and what it is you're creating are the most important things. And we can start with the value prop canvas as a starting point for your ideation. And then also as you are dynamically gathering data to fix this, right? This stuff up here, this is really your executive summary. And a lot of people, again, back to slide one, for years, I see the biggest problem is people just use it and say, yeah, we filled out our canvas. Okay, well, it's not a checklist item. It's like, going to the gym, right? You say, oh, I worked out once. Okay, well, it doesn't mean you're in shape. You worked out once. Or cybersecurity, right? We all know you don't put a firewall in and you're done. You have a team looking at cybersecurity daily if you're a large company. Same with innovation, same with your business model, your value prop canvas, because your customer needs are changing. David Bland, again, back to the book here, as you can see down here, his name with Alex's name, are going to be here speaking to us in about a month. And I'm so fortunate that we have these thought leaders in the world. So Ash Maurya in 2 weeks, right? Creator of the Lean Canvas, one of the Lean startup, founders and gurus. David, who works with Alex, and then even Tendai Vicky, who was part of the Strategyzer leadership team. He's going to be here talking about Pirates of the Navy, which is culture and best practices. So we have some amazing folks who are the thought leaders in the world, the best framework tools in the world. Literally, if you go to Y Combinator or Stanford, MBA school, or Cal or MIT, these are the tools that they're teaching you. And we're bringing this stuff to you for free because we want to really help the entire ecosystem and because I coach with them. But these are the tools you guys can use to start to really bring frameworks, best practices into your organizations and reduce risk, and to build a framework of innovation that can be embedded into your processes now. So last slide, just in closing, what do we do today? We talked about the goal from moving from product service to business model innovation. Look at your ideas in terms of business models, not in terms of the thing you want to create. The business model itself is a one-page summary of how you create, deliver, and capture value. The VP canvas helps identify and map the customer's jobs, pains, and gains to your offering and its features. Problem solution fit occurs when you solve the most important problems, right? That's a big one. And we use this both for ideation and validation. And your ideas are just hypotheses that you must test to reduce risk, right? That's the last one. And this is a big mindset shift for a lot of folks who like me, I've written dozens of the old school business plans. On my credenza here, 300 or 400 page business plans that are paperweights, right? Your banker ain't going to sit there and read 300 pages anymore. They want you to 10 slides, tell me what's going on, what's the potential, what evidence do you have? And maybe next week you've got to pivot, right? So we have to have something dynamic. I'm going to stop there and open it up for questions. And I think we've got a good 10 minutes. Cameron, I'll throw it to you.
So yeah, we have a couple questions, and just before I hop into those, I did share a link a couple times. It's a feedback survey form. We would love for you to share your thoughts and feedback. Helps us continue to innovate and improve these, and also just see what some of your needs are as well. But Brian, in terms of some of the questions, there was one here: how might one figure out the TAM pain point if the product or service need is incohot? Maybe I don't know that word, but especially when the offering is so novel that it may be polarizing. So how do you kind of drive market size from looking at maybe the jobs to be done and those pain points?
I was talking to mute. Yeah, I see that from Sandy. So we don't have time to get too deep, but actually in the Strategyzer tool, if you were having Strategyzer myself coach you, the platform they built, the software platform, actually has the ability to put numbers next to these customer segments. So let's say, we're talking about Hilti, and it's, large construction firms in the US. Okay, well, what's that market look like? How do you define large? And maybe it's $1 billion. Okay, well, how about, retail, home improvement people between, Home Depot and Lowe's? Okay, how many individuals buy, power tools at Home Depot and Lowe's? So you can literally put $1 billion here, 500 million here, and in that software platform, or you can do it right on an Excel sheet or just handwrite the numbers. We then need to go out and say, okay, that's great that we have a total addressable market. And to your point, then the next is, TAM, SAM, and SOM, right? Okay, well, what's the service addressable market? Are we going after the individuals? Or are we going after, like Hilti is, the companies? Okay, so now we're just going after the companies. Is it US or is it global? And then from that, we see SOM, right? What your SOM is, your obtainable market, which is really about your early adopters. And you really need to start refining your customer segments, okay? Because if you draw the diffusion of innovation curve, if you've hopefully heard of that, you're not targeting the mass market. So if you say it's $1 billion SOM, right? Well, 16% on average of any market is your early adopter market. That's your innovators and your early adopters combined. That's who buys your stuff. It doesn't matter what industry you're in general. The other 84% of the market, they don't buy your stuff until 2 or 3 years later when there's product market fit. So if you're being serious, your investor, your VC is going to know this. They're going to say, well, that's great 2 years from now. I want to see you get traction. How big is the early adopter market? If it's $1 billion here, 16% of that, okay, maybe that's 16 million. Now your thought process, your mindset to your VCs or your internal stakeholders, they know you're not full of it, to be honest, right? Because anybody can do Excel magic. You're like, okay, well, I know we're not tomorrow going to sell to the mass market. We're selling to the early adopters. How big is that market? Do we have traction there? Do we have connections and relationships? Then you can start to use your Excel magic, but make it real. Hopefully that helps on your TAM, SAM, and SOM for any new markets.
So there was another question here. You mentioned several tools, so Blue Ocean, business model, and value proposition canvases, amongst others. Which one do you use most often, and when would you use Blue Ocean Strategy? And just before you answer, we do have recordings of our first workshop, which was Blue Ocean Strategy. So you'll be getting a follow-up email from me around our innovation series. So within that, it has all of our prior sessions, the slides and tools. So as long as you registered for this today, you'll be receiving all that prior content as well. And then obviously the more you engage in the actual sessions, the more you're going to learn. But take it away, Brian.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I mean, I probably on every different day, I might have a different answer, but in general, it's the strategy canvas from Blue Ocean Strategy that I like. I've actually reiterated it to call it the value curve canvas, but it's the same thing. Basically, it's like, what are the competing factors that actually should be called jobs to be done? So I'm going to publish this article soon. And that helps you understand how different you are, right, from your competitors, because that's what that canvas shows. That's a great starting point. So I love that tool. The value prop canvas is the second tool I use because it doesn't matter what other tools you use. All of these tools and frameworks can work together. They're not at odds because Blue Ocean Strategy quick tangent, right, is all about how do we find new customer needs, right? New space where there's no competition. It's really about exploration and ideation. But even if you find some new ideas, now you need to put some structure to it. You need to use either the business model canvas or the lean canvas. And so with Ash, I like the lean canvas, especially for entrepreneurs and startup ventures, even some really large companies I work with, because the problem is stated on the canvas. So you don't have to use two different tools like the value prop canvas. There's no right or wrong answer. They're just a little bit different. I use them both. But those are the three: the lean canvas, the value prop canvas, again, / business model canvas, and the strategy canvas from Blue Ocean, that help you identify the customer's biggest problems, jobs, pains, gains, how you compete with somebody else, right? And how you create, deliver, and capture value. And that's really what we're talking about. The last tool that I think is amazing is David Bland basically created the assumptions mapping. And that is just a 2x2 matrix, right? XY axis, you'll learn more about in a few weeks. And it helps us to prioritize, where do we focus these lean sprints and design sprints? Like, we can't do everything at once. What's our biggest, riskiest assumption now we need to go out and gather evidence on? And that tool helps you do that. And they all work together because, one just captures your thoughts. One helps you figure out where to prioritize. Another one helps you look at the customer needs. So they can all work together. And yes, it does take some time to master them, but they're out there for free. You can hire folks like myself to help. You can look at YouTube videos and things. So the goal here really is to help create, help make innovation more of a process and framework that folks use, because you all have HR processes, right? You all have finance processes for budgeting and taxes. But I bet hardly any of you, if none, or maybe none, have innovation processes in your company, right? What tool we use, how the idea gets vetted, by whom, when, and how do we test them? And that's what we're trying to do, is to help you use these tools to actually create structure.
Perfect. Well, we have just a couple more minutes and buying some people some time maybe for their Q&A. We will be again sending the recording of this session as well as the slides, and I'll upload the PDFs of both the business model canvas as well as value proposition canvas. Basically, you'll get access to a Notion page that has all the prior recordings and tools. And we would certainly love your feedback and for you to attend additional sessions. So our next session will be August 16th with Ash Moria, the creator of the Lean Canvas, which is a derivative of the business model canvas that you learned today, more focused probably on pre-ventures and startups. But without that, let's see if there's any additional questions. I'm going in the chat. Any raised hands there?
I'm going to stop sharing my screen just so I can see all your pretty faces.
All right. Well, I think with that, let's give Brian a virtual round of applause. So thanks, Brian, for leading the charge and leading the innovation series that we have in store. Again, we will be following up pretty shortly with all of the content, and we just appreciate you pursuing entrepreneurship and innovation and counting on us as a partner to help you in your journey. So don't hesitate to follow up the email with myself and Brian. We're here to support and look forward to seeing your success in your ventures. And we will see you on August 16th for our next workshop. So see you then, if not before then. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.